I hate to say that. There are a lot of people that want to do marvelous things with government. Good grief, the children of Israel went to the prophets and said, we want to have a king like unto all other nations so we can do marvelous things. And the kings did. David built an empire, Solomon built a temple, but eventually the kingdom was the millstone around their necks that dragged them down into destruction. I think healthcare is the same kind of way. What more marvelous thing can you do than to give everybody all the healthcare they ever want and no one has to pay for it? Eventually that is still the millstone that's going to drag us down, because it doesn't come upon this concept of what balance of power is supposed to do, so that we make sure that government is not telling you what to do. Government is giving people options of how they should be living their lives and giving people choices of how they live their lives, not simply a one-size-fits-all process. So I am tired of people wanting to do marvelous things. Now, I tell you that simply because Woodrow Wilson was progressive, and he wanted to do marvelous things, and they did a lot of that. Franklin Roosevelt was a progressive. Lyndon Johnson was a progressive. Jimmy Carter was a progressive. Barack Obama sees the world as a progressive, and so does Pelosi, and so does Reid, and so does the leadership. They actually don't think that they are stretching beyond recognition the Constitution. They think what they're doing is simply being empowered to do marvelous things. And that's where I differ. That's where I cannot go along with that, because I want people that want to go back there and say, what we need to do is restore a balance of power between federal government and the states, amongst the three branches of government, to ensure the rights of individuals. I can just give you one concrete example. Those of you who live in this valley realize that in the winter, when the inversions hit, your air is crappy. It's a phenomenon of the geography. You've got the mountains and the lake, and when the inversion hits, and the wind currents are not moving, it stays. Now, I have to admit, the air is getting better all the time, but our standards are also getting tougher all the time, so we still end up with more red days. Now, I live on the other side of the divide over there in Brigham City. And for you to go to Brigham City, you know you have to kind of go up an incline, and then you go down into Willard and into Brigham City. The EPA said that all of the great industry that I have in Brigham City is causing your air to be bad because all the pollutant is coming over here. Now, the only problem with that is the airflow between Salt Lake and Ogden goes like this, and the airflow in Brigham City, I'm not coordinated. Airflow in Brigham City goes like this, and there is a mountain and a ridge between us. If ever the air in Brigham City can get up over that mountain and into Ogden, there's enough air current to do it that you don't have an inversion in the first place. At the same time, when our air actually is bad according to the EPA, it's when the airflow is hard enough to push the gunk from Salt Lake over that mountain into there. Now, it's okay that the state said to the EPA, there is no way that Brigham City air and Ogden air is going to cause the inversion because the airflows don't match. And the EPA basically said, I don't care. We think it does. Tough. They also said that Tooele is causing Salt Lake air to be bad because there was a time in the summer, a couple of summers ago, when a lot of BLM land was on fire and it put a lot of ash into the air. Now, unfortunately, you're not supposed to take seasonal approaches. So you know that the air is bad when it's winter. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but there's not a whole heck of a lot of rangeland fires in the winter because of something called snow. Then they said, well, it's because of all the traffic from Brigham and Tooele that goes into Salt Lake. Now, the state of Utah says that the data that EPA is using is nothing more than crap because it is crap. But it's okay because they had their data and they sent it to one of their people in North Carolina who stayed in North Carolina and looked at the data and said, yeah, we're the EPA and we're right. So now the state of Utah has to put in restrictions in what takes place in Brigham City and Tooele, even though there is no data to support it. Now, I'm sorry, but we did Procter & Gamble came into Tremont. Had that been in place, they wouldn't have come into Tremont. That's the difference. The state of Utah knows when the air quality is bad. They know how to deal with it. EPA does not, but once again, One size fits all. EPA tells the states what to do. And that is, I think, the example of why there needs to be that kind of balance. Now, I rambled on too long. I apologize for that. We will not cut Medicare. We will not raise taxes $500 billion. And I also promise you it's not going to be written behind closed doors in your office. Do you just want to pick the people?
Yes. Rusty. Lately, I've been getting concerned about, and I've written to you, and the others I write to you, Ben and Hassan, all the same letter, about separating business and state, because I'm getting really concerned with, especially the federal government, taking over business, period. Stopping on capitalism, getting rid of, making these big businesses bow down to them. How can we stop that? How can that stop?
The question was, how can you keep the federal government from being involved in business and taking over business and controlling businesses?
Well, the business goes to the federal government too.
And that's the other part of it. And that goes back to what I said of the original philosophy. Whenever government wants to take over a business, it's because they want to do those marvelous things in the progressive mindset. There is no constitutional provision for doing that, and we should not do that. The only thing government should do is set a climate for business, which means our tax policies should be those that promote business. And I hate to say this, the first thing that Hoover and Roosevelt did when the Depression hit is to raise taxes, to attack businessmen, and start putting people like Mellon on trial to show business who was boss. What the end result of that was, there were a lot of people who had money, who could invest in the economy to get it moving, who refused to do it. They were going to wait until there was a better business climate, and it was a long wait. The first thing we've done back here is threaten to raise taxes, threaten business, try and go after them and show them who's boss. And once again, there are people today who have money that could invest that aren't going to do it. They're going to wait until there's a better business climate. The only thing government should do is have a tax policy that encourages people to invest in the business and then let them do it. And there should never be something too big that can't be allowed to fail. And we should be the ones who decide that. And we certainly shouldn't be giving the Federal Reserve Board the power to go into businesses in the future to tell them how they will structure themselves, which is the newest idea floating back there.
Bill.
And join some groups in here that will be willing to stand up and sue and put pressure to make sure that does not happen.
But they could still attempt it.
They can still attempt it, but I don't think they can get away with it. Not even members of the majority party are willing to go that far and stretch the rules that badly.
Bert Smith.
Bert?